some help with that?
Was that from a bad back? No, hips. Okay. I don't know what all's wrong with me, but I have a sciatica nerve problem too, I think. It goes down to my leg. Not fun. Looks like, hello. Looks like we're gonna start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep it in mind.
Yes.
Hey, you.
Hey, you. Hey, John.
Fun seeing you out on the playground.
I look at you every day and I'm like, man, how do you do it?
Oh, it's great. I love those. Oh, you're
And we're being so goofy, right? We're being so fun with the kids.
no, you're good.
No, we appreciate you being
You're already
so
running
nice.
and everything? Okay.
I mean, they're good.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of a nice.
Let's drive this boat home.
I'm with you. Oh, I'm with you. Yeah.
You
Nothing
can't
bad
leave
going on.
now if the show hasn't
I'll be
started.
right back.
Right. That commotion, right.
All right. Good night. Good morning. Ooh.
Yes. Goody, 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 gumdrum.
Yeah. Where's Jean? Hello. You're waving, I wave back to you. So welcome to the Mean Queen. Well, I've been only advertising this thing for about 6 to 8 weeks. Everyone got a schedule, including the newspaper. It clearly says Jazz Story Hour. I don't know how they came up with a concert, which will happen Saturday night on Finn Island. But thank you to the Sentinel for writing a beautiful article. With the only correction that tonight is Jazz Story Hour. My name is Christian Fabian. Thank you for coming. So, what is Sitka Jazz Week? One thing I should mention, I do have a non-for-profit, which was dormant for about 15 years, and has a fancy name. It's called RUB Inc. Records of Universal Bandwidth. What does it mean? We capture the wisdom of experienced musicians. It's an idea I had a long time ago when I moved to New York, and I found a lawyer who helped me starting this non-for-profit. But when I moved to New York, I had to really struggle a bit for survival. So didn't have too much time to, run after funding for the non-for-profit. So it was a great idea. I had a lot of support. But we revived it. It was dormant. And we got it back up and running last year. And here we are. It's part of what Sitka Jazz Week is all about, sharing the wisdom of experienced musicians and helping participants to take this wisdom and information and if they want to become a musician, they can run with it. So, but this is essential for the entire week because that's also for the future where some of our funding will come in. So this is documented, it will be videotaped, and people can find this Jazz Story Hour on YouTube. Anyway, let me introduce you a legendary drummer. I never really told the story officially, but we have a common friend who is the reason we are all here. It's the reason why I came to Sitka. A great drummer by the name of Wally Gator Watson, who played many years with the Lionel Hampton Big Band. Wally Gator Watson came to me in 2006. He said, Christian, we're going to play the Sitka Jazz Festival. And we did. He was so excited. He said, and I said, Sitka, where? Sitka, Alaska. It's the only state I haven't performed music in yet. And you will love it. He was right. You know, he was so happy that he could perform in Alaska. He had performed in every other state in the country, but not in Alaska. And I fell in love with Sitka. And Wally Gator Watson passed away in 2009. And we had a lot of little projects going on, including going to a boys' school on the Upper East Side called St. David's School. JFK Jr. went there, amongst many other famous people. Quite a school, you know, tons of funding, you know, lots of money there. But they have a great jazz program, and we were doing workshops there with Lionel Hampton and Wally Gator Watson. Wally passed in 2009, and they asked me back to go there, and I was like, who am I going to ask to go to St. David's? And for the record, there was, when Wally passed, there was a big jam session right next to his coffin at the wake. The coffin was open, and was George Benson's bass player, Stanley Banks? Stanley Banks was running the jam session. Musicians came up and they jammed, and that's what Wally wanted. He wanted a big jam session. He wanted to go out with a big band, and people jammed. And some of us felt like playing, and some of us didn't feel like playing. I was one of the guys who didn't really feel like playing. But I knew who Bernard was, Mr. Bernard Purdie, which I officially introduced in a second. But I saw Bernard going up. Before he sat on the drum stool, he walked up to the coffin, he leaned over, and he gave Wally this big kiss on his cheek. I'm like, that's the guy. And so when we continued those workshops on the Upper East Side, I called Bernard, and I was very nervous, and I said, you know, Mr. Purdie, would you come and take Wally's chair for those workshops? We're playing in front of these kids. And he's like, I'll be there. I'm just like, wow. And he's great with the children. It was amazing. So anyway, let me introduce you for tonight's jazz story hour, Mr. Bernard Purdie.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a real treat because I'm getting a chance to really go back over the last years to really have something to say. I've been enjoying music for a lot of years. Yes, I've been around the world 3, 4 times. But you know what? It was people like Wally and other drummers that I've become friends with around the world. But also, in my own teaching, I had to let everybody know that for things to work, for things to happen, as a drummer, and every drummer in the world, I let them know that you need to make sure that you have a bass player as your friend and companion. Because that's who you need to keep you straight as a drummer. I can do just about anything I want as long as the bass player is guiding me. As long as the bass player is letting me know this is the direction that we're going in. So, just so you know, it still works today. And that's what I try to convey to all of the students that I have been teaching for the last 50 plus years. You need the bass player. And if you don't, if you really, truly don't believe me, you go work for somebody and the bass player doesn't support you, I guarantee you, you'll be fired the next week. Yes, and that's a fact. Because I don't care how big your ego is or how good you think you are and what you have to do, you need the bass player. Everybody else can fit in. But for a drummer, you need the bass player. So I practice what I preach. And so far, it's worked. I haven't been fired from any bands in the past 50 years. So it's still working. So I do have fun no matter what. And when you have a bass player that's reading you and leading you, everybody's happy. Because what I have to do, my job is to give everybody their right and position. Yes, and I'm good at it. I'll make sure. Yes, I'm pretty good. I'm going to keep the job. The only time that I do not walk over or anything else of keeping the job is that if the drummer asks me to sit in, to do something for him, or whatever, I will never, ever go after their job. I'm pretty loyal to everybody because work is not my problem. I know that I can get a job any place, anywhere in the world because I have proven myself without a shadow of a doubt to be able to do my job. And I love my job. You'll hear me say that probably 10 or 20 times tonight. I can't help it because it does keep me focused for what I have to say and what I do. Now, what I like is being able to ask the audience what you would like to hear, what you want to know. And because I'm so good at what I do, I can give you the right answers.
Before we go to the audience questions, which will happen, I would like to ask you a few questions. I think we had a magical morning this morning. Those 25 minutes between 8:50 and 9:15, to me, it was like, what this is all about. And I just, because we were improvising, moving the schedule around, I'm like, there was a Q&A for the students. And they asked some questions, but they asked all the right questions. There were 4 of them. And part of this non-for-profit and documenting your wisdom and your experience is what is it we're going to leave for the next generation? And the answers you gave was like, wow, I wish we would have had the camera this morning because it was like, that was, was the key. Cliff Guynton talked about the key, which unlocks you talked about, I wrote it down, opening the doors to heaven. That was one of the phrases he used. But one of the questions was why you play drums and why you like performing or what you feel about performing. And the answers you gave was perfect for the next generation. And I do think and the way you express yourself, and I don't know if you can repeat it, but it's in my heart and was in the heart of everyone in the room. But I think that's the younger generation, in my opinion,
thank you.
teaching jazz music has really, we need to guide them, especially when it comes to jazz and the music. We talked about the music business and how the playing, and things have changed quite a bit. And how do we, I don't think we can go back in the past, but what I think is there's some teaching essentials which come from experience, and you're at the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. I mean, on top of the iceberg, leading the way. And if you can share anything for the younger generation, why you perform, I think one of the questions, why you played the drums, if you just can maybe remember a little bit of what you said this morning, and then we can go to the Q&A in the audience. It's up to you, but I thought it was a great morning.
Well, good. I thought it was a pretty good moment, too. But it wasn't about worrying about where we start and where we go. It's all about getting the answers to any of the questions. Giving the answers is the hardest part of anything for teaching. Now, I didn't realize that I had a phenomenal teacher. I thought my teacher was, I knew he was good, but he kept telling me that I was going to be a teacher. And I said, no way, shape, form, or fashion will I be a teacher. Because you say the same thing day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. And they're not listening. He said, you're right, but you're still going to be a teacher. And I didn't understand that. Because I started at 4 years old. Yeah, I actually started being a student. Actually, it was just before 4. But I did not understand what this young man was telling me, what and why and how, and didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. But, yes, 15 years later, I started thinking about my teacher. Now, I've been chastising my teacher for 15 years, telling him I'm not going to be a teacher. But I couldn't get away from helping somebody when they asked me about something, which I didn't know I was teaching. I just answered the question. I just gave an answer for everything anybody ever asked me. Because I experienced it. And because I knew how to tell them they were wrong. Yeah. I had a big mouth. I had a very, very big mouth. And when I wanted to get into right down to the nitty-gritty and make sure that I put my emphasis on why, yes, I had a super big mouth. But I was humble. I actually was humble. Only because I didn't know what I was doing or why I was doing it or anything else. I just know that I could talk to them. And that is what my teacher wanted. He knew when he asked me to say something about what the question was, and I'll let you know that, sure, my name is Bernard Purdie, but my name at that time was Bugsy. Said, Bugsy, explain this. I jump up and tell the students what he was trying to say and convey to them. And he said, okay, sit down. Yes, sir. So fast. He cut me off at the pass. I didn't understand that. But I also didn't understand why he kept telling me that I'm going to be a teacher. None of that made sense to me. But I would still go in and I'd do it. I also, at that time in my life, there was no money. I had no money. So I didn't know. I just didn't know that you go before somebody, you gotta pay. But he allowed me to stay. But he said, just remember, you don't exist. And I said, what are you talking about? You don't exist until I ask you to speak. Oh. And I didn't understand, well, why did you keep asking me? I wanted to say this. Why do you keep asking me to speak to the class, to the students? Okay, if that's what it is, that's what it is. By the time I was 6, I made a mistake. I made a serious mistake. I spoke when I wasn't supposed to. Boy, oh boy. Out! Out! You don't exist. Out! And I got put out for 3 days. I cried all 3 of the days. I went to every one of the students, their parents, and begged and pleaded for them, please let me come back into the class so I can, I can't be on the outside. I just can't be on the outside. Please, you gotta help me. And I promise I will not speak when I'm not asked to speak. I promise, and I promise. Well, 3 days later, he said, Bugsy, you can come back. But remember, you don't exist until I speak to you and ask you to speak to someone else, to speak to the class. And I was about to say, I didn't even think of speaking. I just shook my head here. That was the first lesson. That was the really, really first lesson to understand what he meant about speaking. Now, I'm helping everybody. I'm helping everybody in the class because I got it like this. got it, had it done, bam, boom, bam, boom. So I really had to learn diplomacy.
That was early on. Wow.
Wow, you're right about that.
And I also, what you said this morning, you are number 11 in a family out of how many?
15.
15. He's number 11 out of a family of 15. And what you said this morning was that it never occurred to you that your parents didn't have a lot of money. You always thought you had money.
Of course. Listen, how could somebody tell me that I'm poor? No way, shape, form, or fashion was I poor. I got a big family. I do whatever I'm told to do, bring the money home, and anything, nothing would stop me from doing what I did. Every penny that I made went home. My grandfather, I'd give it to him, bam. Out the door I'd go to the next job. So I didn't know what being poor was about. Ever. Until I was in my 20s. But I didn't know. And as the time went on, I started learning about everything that I could possibly learn. And I could, I could talk and tell you thousands of stories. But then again, it would be boring because you heard it before from so many other people. But you never heard it from me because I had to learn diplomacy. And I had to learn to speak when I was told to speak. All of these things work when it comes down to learning your craft. And that's what I had to do, learn my craft. And I got good at it. I wasn't going to worry about anybody, anyone taking things away from me because I'm going to be the best at doing my job. This man put a lot of trust into me. And I had to, like I said, I really had to learn diplomacy. And it took me a long, long time. But when I started to learn and understand about diplomacy, I even learned that I had a big mouth. I would speak until you're asked to speak. Understanding it was the hardest part. But I started to learn what he had to say, what it was all about, and why. It's another ball game. It's another ball game.
Yeah. Thank you. What also came up this morning was great, one of your answers in terms of what really struck me. One of the things we're working on is working on performance anxiety. A lot of the participants struggle with that, getting really excited or having performance anxiety. What you were saying is like, you love yourself. You love everything you're doing, and you're the best drummer in the world. And then you said, I know I'm not the best drummer in the world, but I'm the best drummer in the world. So this confidence, yeah.
I didn't quite say it like that.
Okay, sorry. I'm trying to rephrase. Forgive me.
Yes, there's nobody. Sure, I believe in myself. Of course, I do. But I'm not the best drummer in the world. I'm the prettiest. That's where I got my nickname, Purdie. So I don't worry about being the best. The best means that you're in competition with everybody all the time. I don't have to be in competition. I'm good at what I do, and I'm going to make sure that I get the job. That's what it comes down to me. I go for a job, I'm going to get it. Now, that's the confidence that I have. But I also am smart enough to understand, to read first about the job and who you're going for, who you're taking the place of. Believe me, I'm good at that. Because I'm going to make sure that I look better than anybody else. I'm going to be dressed properly. I'm going to do what I have to do. And I'm even going to learn how to shut my mouth and do it right. So when I go for an audition, it's mine. And that's what I finally found out about my teacher. That's how good my teacher was for me. He stayed on my case. He really did. I lost him by the time I was 15. I didn't know what happened. I was told that he moved to out in the Midwest, and I didn't know. I looked for him, and I looked for him. But I remembered everything that this man taught me. And I mean everything. And then I started to realize that I was a spitting image of my teacher. I started to understand him. I started to understand why he kept telling me, don't talk when you're going for a job. You listen and find out what it is that you have to do. I had to learn diplomacy. I really did. Because I was always the first one to jump up and say, I can do it, I can do it. I can do this job, I can do it. You gotta wait till you're being asked. That's how you get the job. You perform when you need to. That's how you get in front of the line. And that's how you're going to get the job and make the job work for you. Diplomacy was not in my picture until I was 20 years old, maybe. By that time, yes, I started to learn about diplomacy. And I got good at it. I got real good at it. So from there is when things started to happen. And then I started to create. Yes, I'm a creator. I've created beats, my own beats, this and that and the other. But I did it, and how well I did it. More hit records than anybody else in the world. Yes, you're looking at the world's most recorded drummer. Yes. I told you in the beginning I'm good. No one wanted to believe me. So, yes, I have the title. There's over 4,000 albums that I'm on, 2,500 different artists. The record probably won't get broken because nobody records as much as they did years ago. And this is all long before you could do this. But people today steal a lot. Yeah. Oh, they steal. There's no doubt about it. And I'm one of the lucky ones because now it's being proven that people have been stealing my stuff. And the Purdie beats are out there. There are thousands of records that have it. Every drummer in the world has to learn the Purdie Shuffle because of so many hit records with it on. Yes, it's that many. But the beauty of it is that I created it.
Thank you. One more thing I wanted to touch up on is we talked about loving the audience, like an old school kind of performing. We mentioned Dizzy Gillespie, talked about my teacher Mike Longo, and talked about the participants and the students, how important it is to love the audience.
The audience? The audience, they come from all over the world. Yes, they come from all over the world. And fortunate for me, I'm still being called to actually perform the Purdie Shuffle with different artists today. So I'm still recording. I'm still recording. And I don't mind showing you what the Purdie Shuffle is. Oh, it's really quite simple. Quite simple. It only took me 40 years, but it's quite simple. Yeah, I'll be very glad to show you that. And I have so much fun with it. And what I said to you in the beginning about the bass player, yes. Well, the bass players have to join. They have to help. They got to support. That's why so many records work. And that's why so many hit records are still being played from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. Right on up to the day. Yes. The Purdie Shuffle is still the most sought after feel, groove, attitude. But not all of the drummers of the world play it quite like me. I just put a little extra. But it's so easy for them when they learn how to read music. Yeah, all drummers don't read music. They got feel. They do their thing. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But the feel that comes with it is energy. And you've heard it on thousands of records. Yes. Yeah, Aretha Franklin, Steely Dan, Hall & Oates. You got all of these folks out here that made so much money. It's ridiculous. But I'm so glad that they still think of me when they do ask me to come and join them, you know, for things like that. So my legacy hasn't stopped as of yet. So I'm still working on trying to find something else that I can stick in the music. Just change it a little bit.
You're busy. I know you guys are all over the place. You've been traveling, Brazil. You guys go anywhere. It's pretty amazing. Well, maybe at this point, just before we get to the save the best for last, Purdie Shuffle. Any questions of anyone in the audience to Mr. Purdie? There's an arm goes up. Your name is Debbie, right?
Yes.
Hello,
Yes.
Debbie.
Hi, it's great storytelling. I'm curious if you remember your very first recorded album and who you recorded with.
The first recorded album. Yeah. There's a young lady that was called Doss Troy. No, I'm sorry, she was the second. Just One Look was the second. Mickey and Sylvia. Their record, their first record with Mickey and Sylvia. And then Doss Troy. And that was in 1961, 62, high heel sneakers, 63. Another 10 to 15 different records in 1964. Hall & Oates. Steely Dan. The list goes on and on and on. But the people didn't know what it was that they got until I started explaining it to people. But there were at least, looking at those first 5 years of how many hit records that was in and how many records that were repeated, and it's just wonderful. United groups, about 100 different groups, whether they were with Motown, whether they were with New York, whether they were California. I was being brought to different parts of the world to play and perform and make records. Yes, the early ones are still around. Those records are still happening, and they're still going to happen in a big way. right now, the records from the 70s are the biggest records in the world right now. Commercials. Those commercials, you are spending money and buying clothes and you name it, beer, wine, it
It's all
doesn't
coming
matter.
back, yeah.
It's all the music from the 70s. Those records are still making money for people. Every last one of them. And the Purdie Shuffle is in the middle of all of that.
Give it up for Bernard. I have a question coming to studio recording. Your very first recording, the studio is a whole different experience than playing live.
Oh, yes.
Has a different focus. I remember my first studio experience, I was living in Holland, and my hands were cramping. I was like, oh my God, you're so aware of being recorded. So how was your experience in the studio is anything you learned in the studio? How was your experience, and how did you being the most recorded, obviously you're in your comfort zone. People know what they get. They hire you and you deliver and you be hired back. But when you went to the studio the very first time, was there any odd situation or something you had to figure out to the right mindset maybe, or attitude in order to make sure that whatever you play comes out on the tape? Back in the day, they had tape.
Well, yes. What happened is that they came out looking for somebody around the corner, to the bars, to the clubs, and all that other stuff, looking for a drummer to play with Mickey and Sylvia. Aretha Franklin, Nina Simone, every artist at that time during the 60s, everyone was looking for hit songs. Hit, hit, hit. Well, the hits happened, but what the public did not know is that those hits were from the demos. Each one that I just named to you, 15 or 20 different folks, they were all demos. And the other people in the bands couldn't get it. So, because you're supposed to have a master. Demos, you only get paid, at that time you're getting paid $10. But they could not get it all together. It didn't work. So they put the demos out. And all of those hit records that they're now using again and again and again are the masters that they used. They were the demos.
So when they asked you come in the studio and record a demo? They officially hired you for a demo. I do know when you go in the studio, you demo, you're like, demo, you're totally relaxed. Rather than come to the studio, we want to make a hit record, you're like, oh my God. But so they actually told you, said we hire you for a demo.
Yes.
And you didn't know till afterwards that they used the demo for the hit record.
Yeah, because first of all, they didn't tell you. But that wasn't the problem. They couldn't recreate it from the demo. The demo sounded better than everything that they did to sell the records and do it. There were so many artists that was writing and doing demos that they could not get it to mimic it. Just to get the same thing. There was something there that was magical. And most of it was 1 and 2 takes. That's what happened. So the 10, the 15, the 20 takes that they were doing didn't come anywhere near or close to what the demos were. Yes. So consequently, for me, it was a wonderful feeling. Because yes, I was actually creating and recreating. I was lucky, I was fortunate. Because, like I said to everybody else, I've always had a big mouth. I like what I do, and I would like what I did each time that I was doing the demos. High heel sneakers. High heel sneakers have been recorded 100 times. But the record that everybody plays is from the demo. Yes, it's really quite simple, because that is what they are trying to recreate when they go and they play and they make these songs over again. It's all over the world. That is how records and hit records are made. Something clicks, something happens, something works. And the small part of it, which becomes the biggest part of it, is they still have not been able to duplicate the sound, the feel, the attitude, and it's all positive attitude to these records. So I'll let you know that my second book that's coming out is going to take people back to so many of the hit records that everybody thought that, big band and this, that. No. Those demos that are still going strong today.
At this point, it confirms to me, we talked about Ron Carter quite a bit. Ron Carter is a big believer, and if you haven't heard about it, big believer in the first take, the second take.
Yes.
Frank Sinatra was a big believer in the first take and the second take.
Yep.
Miles Davis, first takes for most of his recordings.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something about, and I mean, you know that, and you talk about the magic, but the first take and the second take, there's something about the magic when you go into the studio, which when it happens, you won't get it in the 5th, 6th, and 7th takes. You talked about earlier this morning about 20 takes of something you were trying to do, and they didn't get it.
Listen,
So all these great musicians are big believers in first takes, because there is something about the attitude, the spirit, the approach, the relaxed
yes.
attitude of the musician, which cannot be recreated in the 3rd, 4th. And to me, that's just a confirmation. I'm glad you're saying that.
Well,
And I didn't know they call it in the R&B word, or the recordings you mentioned. I didn't know they called it a demo.
That's what it was.
Do you think it was a trick to get the musicians to relax, or just to get the musicians also cheaper, or it just they didn't know?
They didn't know, and that's why all of those records that people have heard from the 60s and the 70s was recreated, sometimes as many as 100 takes. It didn't happen. And they went back and put the demo out, and that's what you have bought throughout your life. Those were the hit records. Those were the ones that happened. Sure, there are other records that happened that you've taken 50 takes. A good example is Steely Dan. There are records with Steely Dan that, yes, their most sought after records are the ones that was in first, second, and third takes. But they have records that 50 takes, 60. We have one of them that the Spirit, Paul Simon, Love Me Like a Rock. Love Me Like a Rock. Yes. It ended up being the third take. But we worked on that same song for 2 weeks. Over 100 different takes. The one that made it and put them into the $1 million markets is the first, second, and third take. That's what happens when it's right. When it's right there in front of you. But you got to prove something to somebody and to the industry. And that's what happens. The big companies will spend the money. They'll spend the money. Especially when you got an artist that heavy duty and they're making money with them. They don't care how much that you stay in the studio. When you got an artist like with him, he gets paid. He gets paid from everything that he does. He doesn't have to pay for the record itself. The first record press, that's when you got artists that do those kind of things, and it happens. Some people don't pay. Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand don't have to pay. She made so much money for the record labels and all, and they said, go do what you gotta do. Go do what you, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Get paid from the first record press. That's a major thing for an artist to have. You only have a few artists like that. A few.
Yeah, she did so well. I think she didn't perform for 30 years. It set her up.
Yes, and it's amazing that you don't have more people that can do that. But the record labels, especially at that time, years ago, oh, no. This artist, that artist. Because they made so much money that they don't want to lose the artist. They don't want the artist going to another label. Why? Because they didn't give them a $50,000 or $100,000 or $500,000 or something. When they're making $1 billion with these clients, that's money. That's big money. That's the business. That is how the business worked. You just don't have people that, in today's world, that get those kind of deals. They just don't.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Me?
Your arm is up.
Okay, I couldn't tell. Back to when you were 6 and you discovered yourself.
Back when I was 6,
or 3?
well, yeah, between 3 and 4 was the first time that I realized that I was going to be a drummer. But you want something else to go in there? Is that what you're trying to say?
I just wanted to feel you, because you're for me, what gets me to stop and listen to a song is the beat. And I've spent a lot of time in sneaking in recording studios and being in jam sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear musicians and they're just noodling or playing around, I would always turn my camera on, because I would hear beats that I really liked that maybe the drummer didn't, he flew over it, or he would come back to it. And then I had a drummer friend who, all the musicians, he was so melodic that his beat wrote the song. So, I don't know, this is my first time to actually meet you and know you. I lived kind of in my own little bubble out in the ocean, and I could just feel the beat off of your energy. I don't know all the songs that you've been on, but I know that Purdie Shuffle is gonna rock my world.
But the energy,
Yes. It is. It is energy. Don't get me wrong. It is energy. Every beat that I've done, it took a while to get it together. I had to make sure that I understood what I had. The Purdie Shuffle, from the shuffles that were being made and done in the early 30s, 40s, and 50s, doom, do-doom, 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 do-doom. That's where the shuffle came from originally. Doom, do-doom, 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 do-do-do-doom, do-doom, do-doom, do-do-do, do-doom, do-doom. But the Purdie Shuffle is not that way, and all you have to do is think in terms of halftime. Doom, doom, you put the beat itself, the backbeat itself was on 3 of the bar. It's a 2-bar phrase. Now, most of the people in the beginning, you couldn't say that to people because nobody believed you. It was really that simple. Nobody believed you. But it all came from trying to make songs that were happening in the 50s from a triplet. Do-do, 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 do-do. This is what was going on in the 50s. Ballads. Ballads. With a backbeat. But you take that same thing and you double it, but you do it at halftime. That's all. This is how I made other things work. So that same thing that got me there in the first place was like an accident. But I was happy because I love creating, always did. Because that's what my teacher was teaching me. But I didn't know that. When I really found out for myself, I was 20, 20, 25. Yeah, that's when I discovered that I had something that was different. And boy, oh boy, from there, I love me. I started to love myself more and more and more. Yes. So, in the beginning, I shut up. I just do it. And after a while, those records were happening. Aretha Franklin, Steely Dan. Oh, the list goes on and on and on and on. Yes, because I had something else that worked. And it was unique. And it stayed out of the way of a vocalist. You never, ever want to mess up a vocalist. Because when you start messing with the vocalist, you're in trouble. You are definitely in trouble. Because there's not a singer out there that's going to be happy if you're in the way. If the musician is in the way, you're gone. Guaranteed. You're out. And they'll find somebody else.
Yeah. I want to bring up one time the energy is a very important point. Actually, a very good question. We talked about it too. And you mentioned to the students today, the positive thinking, the positive energy you bring with you as a musician, no negativity. And, I think what you also was pointing out is the energy you attract. So, and it's part of the success. People know when they get you, they get a positive mindset, positive energy. And, you think positive about yourself. You love yourself. That was very important for the students to hear that. Because, it's not that we hear, our own voice most of the time is pretty much can be very negative. It's like, you're not good enough for this, you're not good enough for that. How can you do this? How can you do that? So we talked a lot about, in the Sitka Jazz Week with the participants, about what's going on between the ears. It's really important, and it's and you pick up on that. You're living in your own little bubble on the boat, but what attracts you is the positive energy, and it's something really important. What is it we take out in the world? What is it we bring to the audience? What is it we bring as a teaching element to the students? What is it? And I think probably your teacher, did the right thing, obviously. You found that out by you having to shut up and look for other things. And the thing is, the positive energy is absolutely important in everything we do. And that we carry it with us at all the time, and that we can rely on it, especially when we are in high stressful situations, which could be a recording session, could be a tour, could be a performance. We talked about in the workshop that you don't let outer circumstances dictate the way you perform, right? You talk about smiling all the time.
You gotta smile. When you gotta smile, everybody is happy. You make everybody else happy when you're smiling, because then you know that you caught on to what they're looking for, what they're trying to get, and everybody wins. It becomes a win-win-win-win-win situation, not a lose. No. But that is what it's about. Win-win-win-win-win situation. So, like I said, yeah, I got a big mouth. I've always had it. But the problem is, it wasn't such a problem to me when I could show you. When you ask me about what I'm doing, and then you like it, hey, I just jumped in front of everybody else. Yes, and that's what I used to do. I am a musician. I love what I do. I love folks. I love being able to handle the situation? Yes. So I give all the time. It works for me. It really does. Because sure, like I said, I got a big mouth, but I put out. I give you what I'd like for you to have so you can try it yourself. And as long as it works for you, that's positive.
Yeah, I should interject here quickly. We talked about, you know, a lot of the music programs in the country go down, and sports, it's all about sports. And we talked about that in sports, you will always have a winner and a loser. You have two teams playing against each other. The thing about music, there's no loser in music. You play for the audience wins, the musician wins, and everyone goes away from an event, you're elevated. It's a big difference. Although, I mean, there are some people who would argue that, but, you know. But the fact is, you go into a concert, you go to see your favorite artist, you're going to feel great after you go home. And guess what? This guy, if he's playing for the artist, he's going to feel great too.
Woohoo! I love what I've been able to create. I also love the artists that allowed me to do that. And there are hundreds. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you there are thousands because you might not believe me. But the hundreds, yes. But there is thousands. Because I love what I do and how I've done it and got it across. Now, other musicians are praising me at this time of my life. There's a young lady, I think she's in England. I think she's 12. This young lady made a statement when they were talking and they asked, you know, well, who is your favorite? What is, you know, who's your favorite musician? So she named so-and-so, so-and-so, you know, nice person. And then another, and so-and-so, so-and-so. So that was two, so I figured, oh, everything, but I love the Purdie Shuffle. What? Woo! I finally made it! First time I heard it myself. This was the first time that I heard it as a young, 12 years old. My wife heard it. She said, "Did you hear that?" Did you? I said, yes, 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 yes. So we called them. Yes, we made a phone call. And I made a phone call and we thanked them. And hopefully, I'd say, you know, right now, I'd say maybe, you know, next couple of months, we will finally get together and I'll get a chance to play the Purdie Shuffle for her on her record.
That's great.
Because that's how I feel about it.
Any other questions for Mr. Bernard Purdie? There's an arm at the very back.
Yeah, I had a question about your creative process, like coming up with a new groove like the Purdie Shuffle. Do you think about it sort of analytically, the way that you described it to us just now, or do you think about it more in terms of just the feel, or like you said, sort of an accident?
Oh, it stopped being an accident some time ago. Sir, believe me, I do it all the time now because I've been forced. It really is, you know. Everywhere I go, it's the first thing that people ask me to do. And I try my best to try to make it the last thing. Because once you do it, nobody seems to want anything else. So I'll be very glad to do that for you guys here tonight.
Here we go.
And you just let me know. Just let me know if you like it or not. You know, so, and you know, if you want me to record on your record, that's good too. You know, I mean, you can call us. Listen, yeah, I got new management now. And my new management is on my case. They're really good. They're really, really good now. And what my wife can tell you, because she's been on their case to make sure. So I'm the lucky one that it's happening all over again.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
There was one more arm over there, the gentleman with the hand.
When did you come to Sitka? When did you come to Sitka?
When did you come to
Oh, when
Sitka?
did I come to, besides a week ago? No, I was here in the 70s. I was also here in the 80s. I was also in, yeah, part of the 90s. Let's see, what did I say?
You said something about a cruise boat?
Oh, yeah, the cruise. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, I used to play on a lot of cruise ships, but that was like when you have specialty ships, you know, jazz, blues, R&B, pop. I play all genre of music. So one of the ones, the one in the 70s, did I say the 70s?
You did say
No,
the 70s.
Huh?
I thought you said the 70s, but maybe
Yeah.
it was the 80s. You mentioned
No.
Jeff Beck on a
Yeah,
cruise?
well, Jeff Beck. We were doing a world tour, and we came here in the 80s. That was 82. No, 85. Because 82 was, that was Dizzy Gillespie.
I'm glad you mentioned his name. I want one more question and then you can do the party shuffle. About Dizzy. But go ahead, I was interrupting you.
Yeah, and also another group that I came, same thing, cruise, and it was really, really nice also. But this was the blues cruise. Well, the blues cruise happened to be a little bit of both, blues and a little funk. So you can get away with a lot of little things if you can add and make the funk not too busy, but just enough to keep people dancing. My whole life, everything that we did, I was told, you gotta make people dance. Big band, little band, intermittent band, it doesn't matter. Make them dance. So I have gotten that all my life, as far as I can remember, everything. You gotta make people dance. And I believe in it. I have always believed in it. And I'm still making people dance. And it doesn't matter whether it's country, whether it is rock and roll, whether it is just plain old blues. Doesn't matter. Now, I don't do too much of what do you call big orchestras, 70, 80-piece orchestras, much anymore. But I did do it with Dizzy. Yes, Dizzy Gillespie. We did quite a few orchestras. And I happened to do quite a few orchestra works with a little unknown young man that wrote 20 different Broadway shows. His name was Galt McDermott, the man that wrote Hair. Hair is one of the biggest Broadway shows of the world. He also wrote 19 other Broadway shows. And I was fortunate enough, I worked with him for almost 50 years. And we just had a beautiful, absolutely wonderful, marvelous relationship that gave me the chance to record as much as I wanted. Made me happy. And it also paid the bills.
How did you meet Dizzy Gillespie for the first time? I meant to ask you that. This is an amazing clip on YouTube, which I actually going to show tomorrow. With you and Dizzy playing Manteca.
Yes.
How did you meet Dizzy? How did he meet you? How did the connection came about? Dizzy is a big influence in my life because I studied with Mike, who played with Dizzy for a long time.
Well, Dizzy had a way with words.
He did.
When he wanted something, he'll bring it to you. He will ask you, I'd like for you to work with me, and I'd like you to be in the band, and I'll pay you well. But I said, but you're jazz. He said, yes, but my money isn't. Dizzy was the first person to me to pay rock and roll money. That's right. And it wasn't but 4 of us that he had to worry about paying. 4. I had 2 full years. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I went around the world with Dizzy. Around the world. And at that time, Dizzy's picture was on every festival. His picture was on the poster. He was the star. But what a gentleman. What a beautiful person. It's just something that you just don't find. You don't find that kind of person in the jazz world. I love all the folks in the jazz world. I do. But half of them do not pay you the kind of money that Dizzy Gillespie paid. That's right. So you stay focused, you do what you got to do, and here's 4 people traveling together around the world, and we pick up orchestras. We pick up bands, and there were orchestras anywhere from 10 to 50 people to do orchestra, because he had those kind of charts that he could do. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I took the drummer's place, good friend of mine, but he wanted to stay in the States. I can't go into a lot of details with him, but that's what he wanted to do. So Dizzy called me and said, I'd like for you to go on the road with me. I just said, well, I just can't do it tonight. I can do it tomorrow. And he says, good, because that's when we're leaving. But I tell you, it was remarkable for me because I had 2 straight years, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, 50 countries. 50. Yes. I didn't know there were that many different countries in the world. Yes, 50 different countries.
God bless you. That's amazing. Any more questions? You guys want to hear the Purdie Shuffle?
Oh, no.
No.
You couldn't possibly want to hear it now. I mean, that's.
Oh, wait. Okay, you want to hear the Purdie Shuffle?
I want to hear the Purdie Shuffle.
Yeah.
One more time once.
One more time. Okay.
I want to hear the Purdie Shuffle.
Hang on, people. Hang on.
Yeah, that's how it starts. That's how it goes.
All righty. Now I gotta figure out how to get over here. Oh, there you go. Whoa. Yeah. We had a good time today, so the time was so good, I totally forgot what I was doing. And I said, okay, I'll make it work. It's all right. It's okay. So. Oh. Yeah. Nice drums. Nice set of drums. But for those of you that know anything about instruments, I just want you to know that you're one of the first people in the world to hear Bernard Purdie cymbals. Yes, they're mine. This is my line. They gave me exactly what I asked for. And that's why I say new management, marvelous. Oh. Yeah. Now, under normal circumstances, I don't set up this way, quite this way, but you know, it's okay.